Hello, Baker Econ students. Happy Thanksgiving week. We get a little bit of a break this week, so do take advantage of this week to spend time safely indoors with your family. So, with COVID cases going up, it's going to be quite interesting this week and the coming weeks ahead. So, for this week, made it very light for you. So, all you do is have the quiz. I encourage you, though, if you have some downtime, to start looking at the future papers, so it's not so much towards the end of the course. Again, you'll use the same company throughout this series of short papers. But for this week, I just want to give you a little bit of overview of the readings that you're going to go through. Chapter 11, you're going to look at the idea of like a production function, the idea of diminishing marginal returns. We typically understand that as I continue to add more of a input, whether it's labor or capital, and assuming other things are fixed, we just can't expect that I keep adding a input and I get more and more. So I'll give you an example. If you have a garden, a given space, 10 by 12-foot space, and you put seeds in it and water and sunshine and your human technology of knowing how to take care of the vegetables, your goal is to try to get the most vegetables out of a garden. And if you add more Miracle-Gro, it maybe adds a little bit more vegetables. At some point, it's probably going to make the soil too acidic, and you're not going to grow any vegetables. So in business, a lot of times we're looking for that right combination of inputs to be both what we call technically efficient and economically efficient. Technically efficient means I can do it, with the different amounts of labor and capital, and I still get the same amount of output. But economically efficient is ultimately our goal. How do we produce this good or service at the lowest possible cost? And it really is amazing to me with the technology that we have today and computers and systems. You think about how Amazon is delivering all these packages throughout the United States. There's a lot of logic and models and algorithms that go into these things that humans can't do anymore. So we're kind of dependent on the computer to help us make these decisions. And even think about like at Heathrow Airport, how they get planes in and out and make decisions about which plane should be on the runway at which time and try to reduce fuel costs. But there's been a lot of research and a lot of understanding of how things work, and engineers continue to do great things to figure out how to produce things at lower cost. So you're going to combine this with these two chapters this week to understand some of those components. So with the basics, though, for chapter 11, what happens is we start to look at these cost curves, and this will become more important. We start to look at the different market structures. But total cost is simply fixed cost plus variable costs. And if I divide each one of those by Q, the amount that you produce, we get average total cost, average fixed cost, and average variable cost. And they're going to have this U-shape too, that when we look at them, and the reason they're U-shaped is because that idea of diminishing marginal returns. And if we look at the long run cost, and oftentimes you'll hear executives use the term economies of scale. They're trying to lower average total cost. We may get to a point that it's constant, but at some point, some firms may actually experience diseconomies of scale. It'd be like if Budweiser decided to produce all their beer in St. Louis, it just wouldn't make sense because you'd take forever to drive the beer all over the United States. So that's why they have different production centers, they have different distribution centers, and it's a well thought out process to try to do this at the lowest possible cost and get it to the customer. So, all right, a little bit about the last chapter, the market for labor. You're going to look at the demand for labor curve, the supply for labor curve, different reasons why these curves would shift, how we get an equilibrium in the market for different wages. You're going to also read some interesting things and aspects about, why are there wage differentials? Why should professional athletes make so much? It may not seem fair, but it's a market. As long as there is a demand for that particular type of labor and people are willing to pay for that labor, that market will exist, and some people will make a lot of money. Ultimately, for you as individuals, one first, reason you're taking graduate level courses, you're trying to improve yourself. You're trying to add value to your employers. And your employers, some of you may be helping out with that. Some may have to take out student loans. But it's an investment in human capital. You're trying to improve your long run opportunities through investing in your career. And as things evolve, whether individuals acquire more human capital, or if as we find better ways of producing goods and services, that can all impact the demand for labor in the market and the wages in markets too. And you're going to read some interesting things too about discrimination. What are some, obviously discrimination based on race, sex, age, any of those things. We try to eliminate those things, but economists still observe that there are different forms of discrimination that may exist in market that aren't due to those things, and how do we correct for those things. And you'll read a little bit about how economists sometimes try to analyze these things. Why are there these differences? And some of these differences may be due to differences in education. I'm a big believer, if you want to try to improve any economy, you have to educate more people. And that's, it hopes that we as a nation will start devoting more monies to higher education. For many years, it's been declining, and states have been spending less and less each year on investing in higher education institutions in the states. We see it at the federal level, and the cost. I know you all see it in the cost of the price of the student loans. It's been pretty much the idea that if you're going to go to college, you have to take out loans. So hopefully that maybe will change now, and we'll see if there's a little bit more investment in education going forward. So. All right, that's pretty much what I wanted to wrap up for this week. I'm going to keep it a little bit shorter and sweet to give you just time to take a break. Again, I really appreciate all the discussion that's going on in the forum discussions. So when we get back, I believe we have 2 more of those to go, and I think the final week you're just kind of working on your final quiz and your final paper. But again, if you do have any questions this week, do email me. I'm going to try to take a little bit of break too, and also do some work in my dissertation to try to in some of the downtime that I get on the holidays that I get off. But again, have a great week. Have a happy Thanksgiving, and we'll talk to you online when we get back.